this goes back to that image bearer language. If he asks whose image is on that coin, and then he says, surrender to Caesar's what is Caesar's. And the point of that is not to talk about taxes, but he's asking them whose image is on you. And so are you giving back to God's what is God's? And in our current climate where it is asked of you to give radical devotion to a political party or tribe or candidate or whatever, we have to constantly go back to that question every morning when we wake up. Whose image is on me? And that being God's. And am I actually living in light of that? Of, as I go through my day and I interact with people of different tribes or political persuasions or whatever it is, do I look more like Jesus and more like a candidate? All right, I'm Austin.
I'm Robby.
This is Into the Fray, and this episode we're going to be diving into politics. But to start it off,
Before we get heavy, yes.
well, it might be still a little heavy.
Oh, okay.
Let's just put our cards on. Where do you like to get or listen to politics the most from?
Listen to topics?
Yeah, like when you get your political news.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Would you rather hear it from a comedian? Would you rather hear it from CNN? Some random guy at the gas station that you meet? Like, where's your favorite place to hear it?
No to the last, for sure. The random guy at the gas station is probably not the dude I'm having a deep conversation about politics with. I do watch the news. Not a ton, probably not as much as I should. I can get it really quick on my phone. So sitting down and watching, entire debates and things. I like Cliff Note versions.
Yep.
Which I'm kind of that way with books anyway. So truth be told, I kind of that way with the news. I've learned though, it's kind of like we've discussed with different topics, heavy, weighty topics of theology. I want to force myself to listen to both sides.
Mm-hmm.
I think with anything, I don't care if it's vaccinations or if this or that, like you need to be informed. I think that's just part of being godly stewards, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not that I have to know completely everything about another direction or belief or whatever else. I definitely need to know what I believe and why I believe, but I do need to be informed about what you believe. You know what I mean? Because you believe it, and so I try and not just stick with one news channel, one website, one podcast, one whatever. I try and listen to a bunch of different ones. And it's hard sometimes because it's like anything. When you hear it and it goes against, you just like cut off, like pause, exit, whatever, kind of like I'm done. I'm not ever doing this because it just feels like it's, burning into my soul. So, but I kind of force myself to. How about you?
I definitely lean more into the comedians because I feel like not like I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, dang, when I tell people that, they probably are thinking like Amy Schumer, like far left comedians who are like, their whole point in the joke is to get like a message across. That's not the ones I'm talking about.
Okay.
I like the Daily Show, so I watch that a lot.
Yeah.
Occasionally I watch like the Weekend Update on SNL and stuff like that. And it's not to get all the facts from, but I love to hear like a good comedian's goal is they're not picking sides. They're looking around the room and they're just trying to find what they can make fun of the most. They're trying to look at the silly stuff. They're trying to identify and bring it out to like the forefront of everybody's minds. And so listening to comedians has been really helpful, I feel like, because they help you realize how silly a lot of politics is and like how hypocritical we all are. And like you'll have one side get mad at the other side over something they did, but then they're doing the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, the comedians, they just the good comedians, I feel like they're just like, I'm just looking for the joke. I just want to make people laugh. That's my whole. That's how I get paid. Yeah. And so I don't care which side I'm going after. Yeah. I just want to point out the silliness on both of them. Yeah. And so, also I feel like it is easier to take some of that stuff in when you can laugh about it. Yeah. Because like Fox or CNN, like that's so boring. Mm-hmm. Also, there's so much like, I know politics is serious, but they make everything so serious, and everything's the end of the world, and everything's full of so much hate, and we gotta be on attack mode. I'm just like, that's exhausting. Mm-hmm. So I need someone to slip in a joke every now and then to like be like, yeah, but like we don't really know how the Supreme Court works sometimes. Like, let's just be honest. And like, I don't know, it just helps bring like a levity to the situation. Yeah. And you can breathe a little bit and you can take it in, and it makes it easier to digest. Yeah. And so like, I was thinking about it this morning too. Like my favorite, I think, political type comedian is Hassan Minhaj. Mm-hmm. I think I butchered his last name, which is terrible because I watch him way too much. But like he had this show on Netflix called The Patriot Act, and he didn't really even go into like Democrat or Republican stuff. He was just like taking different like things going on in the culture, whether there's like businesses frauding people out of money or whatever, or refugee crisis like issues, and like he was just like doing deep dives on them. Mm-hmm. And he's of course like making jokes throughout it, but then he's like just doing a deep dive on one subject, and so you kind of get an idea of what the situation fully is, instead of like breaking news, this happened, we're not going to give you any context of the history behind it or why this decision matters, or anything like that. He just, I don't know, I like that. And he's also just a great storyteller, so then that adds to it. Yeah.
Well, and the thing too, I mean, just in comedy, humor in general, I mean, there's obviously, like you said, the goal is to make people laugh. That's what they get paid to do. That's the whole purpose behind it. But then there's truth in it. Yep. There's always layers, pieces at least, of truth, even within a joke in general. You know what I mean? Like they're derived from something that exists. Yeah. And so within that, you kind of lighten the emotional tone, I guess, but it does make you think about it. Mm-hmm. You know, which is what a joke should do. I mean, you should laugh and all, but it kind of it's funny, but you know, it takes you down that path. Because let's just be honest, dude. I mean, I don't know about the Gregory household, and the Rowe household. We didn't talk politics. I mean, my mom and dad my dad's been with the Lord for several years now, but my mom, as far as I know, I mean, we don't have like, we're having this Easter weekend, recording this. We're getting together at 1:00 today, and I mean, I would be shocked. I mean, just flabbergasted if it came up, because we just don't do it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not a part of my background, kind of thing. But now, man, I don't know if they listen to podcasts, but my wife's side of the family, it does come up a lot, and you know what? It's just tense. Yeah. And I think for most people, whether it's the dude at the gas station that you mentioned, the random guy, or it's buddies that are sitting down for a cup of coffee, or it's at like these people that you love. I mean, you do love them. When this topic's brought up and there's disagreement, how quickly heated it can get. Yeah. It's the tension. And it's just like, let's just avoid it. I mean, it's kind of one of those things like, you know, how does it go? Religion and politics, the two things you don't talk about. Yeah. You know, because it's going to divide. Mm-hmm. And so it's with the comedy aspect, at least you have, I mean, I don't know if anybody's breaking out humor, you know, around the dinner table, but they're bringing the truth out in a way where, you know what I mean? It does lighten that mood. And so you can think more deeply, and even though it's not a conversation, you can at least get more information maybe from both sides, you know, that you wouldn't. Because when you get angry, you just shut down. Most people do. They stop listening. They're thinking about rebuttal. You know, how can I get there? how can I refute this and win this
Yeah.
argument? And it's
Yeah.
somebody that you love, man. Like, it's tough.
I think too. I know I've mentioned Andrew Schultz a lot, but one of the reasons me and Ryan Adams love Andrew Schultz so much is because he's such a kind of odd standout comedian who he grew up in this house of dancers in New York City.
Mm-hmm.
His parents were both dance teachers, and he's growing up in New York City. He's a white guy though, and he's grown up in a very diverse place, and his parents were like into therapy, and they're very in touch with their emotions, and they're very like inquisitive. And as he grows up, he gets opportunities to like go travel abroad and stuff like that, and he gets to learn from all these different cultures. And so he's like taking all that stuff in, and he's himself is very like inquisitive. He's always asking good questions, and he's taking all these cultures in, and he's also at home living around so many different cultures in New York City that he just keeps getting more curious and more curious. So then he starts a stand-up career, and what people have loved about him as a stand-up comedian is his interactions with the audience. He's famous not for his stand-up specials. He's famous for his little clips that will go viral of him engaging with the audience. And he'll get up there, no like prep or no jokes really to tell, but he's looking for the joke. And so he starts asking questions of the audience, and he's doing like crowd work. And he said that as he's traveled the country, he realizes how much people are really probably more so on the same side than we realize, but how the news outlets, they're obviously trying to get ratings.
Sure.
And so the way that you get those ratings, the way you get people more involved in voting and stuff like that is, hey, you can't really you can't inspire people to take action with love. Like that's a whole different element.
Yep.
You can really inspire people to take action though if you can get them to hate something.
Yes.
And so you dramatize everything. And he says as he's traveling the country and he's in a bar and he's doing a stand-up routine or whatever, and he's asking the crowd all these different questions. He'll have like a Trump supporter on one side and a Bernie Sanders supporter on the other side.
Yeah.
And he's just asking them both questions. And he's watching them both laugh at the jokes. He's like, y'all have way more in common than you realize.
Yeah.
You both think all this is funny.
Yeah.
You both think it's
a little ridiculous.
Yeah, a little ridiculous to be so angry at each other, even though you can come here and be unified in our laughter. Our sense of humor is the same. Yeah. And we're both kind of silly in how like enraged we get at all these things because, I mean, for a lot of us, I think we're probably not as engaged in politics as we like to portray. We love the hot takes online, and we love putting little social media posts out. Like, I can't believe Biden would do this, but the reality is like we're not really like calling our senators, and we're not really like. I mean, I don't know about some people. The people I'm talking to in my everyday life. I mean, we love talking about politics like over coffee, but we don't actually get involved in anything. We're not like campaigning or getting super involved in like keeping track of everything that's going on. We couldn't probably tell you the 3 branches of government if you really asked us. But I don't know. It's been very, I guess, interesting how we feel the need to give an opinion about everything. Yeah. But we're not actually involved. Yeah. And maybe there's something like that's part of the issue is if you actually got involved, you'd realize how much like Republicans and Democrats are actually working together behind the scenes way more than we realize. But that when they're put on camera, they like it's more interesting for us to watch if they're going at it with each other. Yeah. But then we don't see the shots of them at like the parties or the lunches or whatever where they're sitting at the same table and they're laughing. So I don't know.
Yeah. 2 things popped in my mind when you were talking about that, man. One is The response, just like you mentioned about not being more involved kind of thing, and actually doing something about things that we really believe or say that we believe anyway kind of thing. I know that's true in life, but even a lot of the hot, weighty matters of politics. Like, so I was convicted a few years ago, like, because obviously, man, from the womb to the tomb, is what I say. Every life matters. You know what I mean? Like, it's just every single life. And that's true, and it's biblical, and it's beautiful. And then I was convicted. Okay, but what are you doing about it? You know what I mean? Like, we can talk about abortion, on the political scale. We know within our local churches, I mean, people who have been through one, considered one, considering now. And we can talk about the right or wrong of it. We can look at the ethical aspect of it. Oh, well, okay, well, if you believe it's wrong, well, at what point? Well, what about this? We get all those technicalities.
Yeah.
But what about foster care? What about adoption? Because if you're going to talk, the good talk about the mom that was 13 and raped by her stepdad, and now you're saying abortion is wrong, okay, what are you doing about that, though?
Yeah.
Are you getting involved? And I'm talking me even specifically, but for us as the church, well, then why are there so many foster kids that have no home that, 99.9% didn't come out of that situation? But now you're telling this mom not to give up that child, which is the right, I believe it's the right thing that they, that child's life, unborn child's life matters. But, okay, well, if she's not going to raise him, who is? You know what I mean? Like, so it kind of, I was very convicted, man, like, to be more involved. And not just like I guess that's a little aside from the campaigning aspect, but it's just part of the response, like, because most of those weighty matters of immigration or, abortion, or if we're going to talk, even finances, whatever it is, it's like, okay, but what am I doing on my scale, on my, platform that I have, that God's given me, and even responsibility in the community, my family, that sort of thing. What am I doing about it? And the other thing, just real quick, dude, when you said that about hate, that's strong, because it is so true how powerful hate, how powerful fear can be. Which with politics, let's just be honest. Yeah. Fear, man, that's a driving force. Yeah. I mean, you talk about vaccination, you talk about finances, you talk about your job and security and just whatever. Kids, it's fear's driving that, and on both sides. Oh, you want to give up your guns? Fear. Oh, you want to keep your guns? Fear. Both sides are using the same thing, fear. You know what I mean? Yeah. As the underlying kind of current, but what that looks like. Well, if you keep your guns, there should be fear, and because there were school shootings and the availability of weapons and things like that. And then the ones who will say, oh, well, you got to take them all away. Then there's the fear. Well, now we're giving all this authority and protection. You know what I mean? It goes both ways, and it's nothing new. I even think so. Before the Israelites have a king, the reason they cry out to God for a king, they wanted to be like the other nations that were around them. Yeah. So there was some of that. But there was fear. Fear of the Philistines, man. They have been, I'm tired of dealing with. Let's get a king. Let's get somebody to, and that was not God's intent. Yeah. So they select Saul. Yeah. And it's, I don't know, it's crazy.
You need a strong man to represent you and to defend you against the rivals or the other tribes and stuff like that. That's something I was thinking about preparing for this. Is my first time voting was Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton. Okay. So 2016. Okay. Worst entry to this whole world.
By the way, if you don't know, Austin's 20 now anyway. So that makes sense. No, I'm playing. He would have been 18, I guess. So.
I literally had just graduated, turned 18, and they're like, vote for this most controversial election. And I was like, great. I remember the panic, think about it. I remember having a panic attack on the way to the voting booth because I'm like, I don't know anything about politics, and you're asking me to make all these decisions. And at the time, I only thought we were voting for the president. And then I get in there, and they have a whole, it's taking a while. I'm like, wow, okay, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I put personal people's names in that I knew because I was like, I mean, I know they're good guys, so like I'd vote for them.
Yeah.
No one else probably will, but like
doing the right.
yeah, I was like, I don't know anything about any of these people.
Yeah.
I missed the update that we're supposed to like know all these different things that we got to vote for. So that was a whole experience. But I remember the fear that was just like constantly like, and I bought into it because I remember during that time, that's when I was getting into like, I was going into more of the extremist parts of the Reformed camp, and that's where like the Christian Reconstructionist movement is. Yeah. And I'm reading a lot of Douglas Wilson, and I'm blanking on some of the other guys' names, but I just know they got some big books, and they're a lot to read, and I should get credit for that. But a lot of those books I was reading at the time and like those podcasts I was listening to, the thing that attracted me was they sounded so insightful about what was going on. And they were having all these cool debates, and they'd call up Ben Shapiro, or they'd call up whatever like left-wing person they could get on the podcast, and they debate them on air. Blindside the person, but they debate them. Yeah. And the whole goal was like, I'm gonna make this person look like a fool. Yeah. And then I'm gonna share Jesus with them right after. Yeah. And I was like, wow. I'm taking all this stuff in. And then I'm looking at my life, and I'm realizing I'm becoming a lot like these people. Every conversation I was having with someone, we're getting into a debate. Yeah. We're talking about why public school is socialism, and why you can't let the transgender rights stuff happen, because what's it going to happen? Like, I remember telling one of my teacher friends, it's like, what are you going to do when, as a Christian, they make you say the gender the person prefers to be referred to as? Yeah. But like, as a Christian, you shouldn't do that. Yeah. Yeah. And like, that's going to take your job away. Are you willing to do that? And like, they're like, I just want to teach kids their ABCs. But like, everything was like life or death, and everything was fueled by fear. And I was finding myself, I couldn't watch anything on TV, not even like a comedy. I couldn't have friends without constantly looking for the boogeyman around the corner and everything they said. And you become like this little police on every person's words. And if they use this word over here that's now been like used politically, you got to jump on and be like, It could be very clear what they're meaning, but because they use the word that you don't like, I immediately jump on them, and I just tear them down. And I start looking at my life, I'm like, man, I'm miserable. Like, my friendships suck, because all that's happening is we're debating. They're probably getting, I mean, I know they got a terrible view of me, because they told me, they're like, you kind of, you're looking kind of dark, and you're seem crazy. Like, you're just full of hate. And I'm like, dang, when I first became a Christian, I was like, I really want to love people the way Jesus does, because that affected me so radically. And I was like, I want to be friends with everybody, and I want to love everybody equally. I want to love the people that like everyone's out against. But then the more I let politics like come into my life and fuel me, and there's like people who are Christians who are like really into all this, who they bought into the culture wars, and they bought into the fear mongering and all that stuff, that then it started having an effect on me, and I no longer looked anything like Jesus. I instead started looking like your politicians, and I'm being nasty with my words. I'm not actually listening to what people have to say. I'm like quick to speak, slow to listen. And I just felt really convicted, because that's around the time where I'm like really deconstructing things, because I'm like, man, something's off. I thought I was following Jesus by like caring about these issues so much, but really I'm like looking completely opposite to Jesus. And so I start doing that internal work. I'm like, man, the first thing I feel like as Christians you have to get right when it comes to like the political space and anything in general is the greatest commandment is love God and love your neighbor. And so if you do inventory in your life and it's full of hate and animosity and you're constantly dividing, you're constantly like, you're quick to speak, slow to listen, then you might need to take some steps back and like refocus yourself. Yeah. Get the core right. Yeah. Because that's going to affect everything that flows out. Yeah.
Well, and two, it's self-examining, really. I mean, it's being self-aware. Okay, if like what is like one of the questions I'll ask is what is making me so angry?
Yeah.
In this situation. You know, and it doesn't have to be politics. I mean, it can be anything. Like, what is driving? I mean, there is righteous anger, which the Lord has, which we definitely should have against injustices and just sin in general. But we quickly step over that line to where it is not righteous anger, it's sinful anger. And so I ask myself, like, why are you so angry? Like, why is this making? And so that makes me like, there's something beneath that. It's not just your actions or your words or this letdown or whatever. There's something else, and usually it goes into identity or purpose or something much deeper kind of thing. And so, yeah, to the Christian thing, even, man, I'm like, okay, so we would, yes, Paul, Christ is to be preeminent, first, primary, yes. But then when it gets to politics, is he really? Like, or is your party or the candidate or a platform or a position or whatever else, man, is Christ really? Because, like you said, if he is, then the call is to love. You can disagree, most definitely. You're not going to be on the same. And what's crazy to me, too, I remember having a talk with, I can't really remember who it was, but it was, I mean, it's obviously always a big deal, but with immigration.
Yeah.
And the individual made the point, they were like, but it seems like both sides, like when you look at it, I mean, yeah, like they're both talking about these, you know, they wouldn't say this, but for us as believers, the value of life, of human life, like these image bearers. Like, so it's both protection. They're looking at it in different ways, like how it should be. But the overall, again, the same common core thread is the image of, you know, these are images of God. Like these are humans. These are individuals whose lives matter. But they're coming at it different directions. Yep. And so where we get caught is, again, and obviously figuring the ways to handle that, the means and all that sort of thing, we're going to differ on kind of thing. But the core of it is the same. But the thing that I'm amazed by, dude, is like social media now is so easy to go on that blast mode. You know what I mean? Like you were doing that with your friends, and so maybe there was a little more sympathy, I guess, for like, this is Austin and we still love him. But on social media, I mean, you got 2,000 friends. How many of them are really your friends? And it's so easy when somebody posts something. I mean, and you know, if this is you, then I would just ask you to, you know, examine which one is primary. Is it really Jesus or is it your party? Because you know, this happens a lot. You can't be a Christian and vote this. All right, I understand what you're saying. I really do. But hear me on this. Salvation is not a party.
Yeah.
Or a platform. His name is Jesus. That's our, you know what I mean? Like, and so I get, whether it's, you know, abortion or whatever it is kind of thing. But when you say that, you need to understand what you're saying and how that person is also what they're hearing. They're receiving the message and what they're interpreting that to mean. And then the onlookers. Yeah. How many people see that? And here you've got two so-called believers, and you're calling them an unbeliever in essence because they're voting differently than you. Yeah. And that's just some dangerous stuff, man. Like, we need to be sensitive.
Yeah. I remember I was trying to do like a inventory on like thinking through how much politics has like been in my life. And I was like, man, I remember one, and I think it had to be 5th grade because it's when this kid moved to our school. We're sitting around the lunch table. This is around the time Obama becomes president. So, 2008. Yeah. I don't know how the conversation started, but I remember us talking about, as 5th grade boys, being like, we got to go defend our country. Like, we got a terrorist in the office, and like, we got to go up there. And like, we're coming up with some plan of how we're going to save our country and get Obama out. And I'm thinking back. I'm like, wow, we had no idea what we were talking about. One, I didn't know who Obama was at the time because my family's not very political. Like, where it wasn't until more in the recent years that any of us really paid attention to politics. But here we were, like fifth grade boys, like so invested. And I see it in some of our middle schooler youth. Like they'll come in and one of them will they'll draw a bomb out there about politics, and I'm like, hey, let's cool it. Like, I don't want to get in an argument with your parents about politics right now. But then that's just fifth grade boys filled by hatred over someone they don't know because of whatever they're hearing at home or on TV. And then it was 8th grade. It was around the time Romney and I think that's Obama still. Yeah, Romney and Obama. They're going up against each other. I remember in Sunday school, our Sunday school teacher being like, I can't vote. I don't know how a Christian can vote for Romney because he's a Mormon. Yeah. And then also, one of the kids who had moved that had been in that Obama conversation in 5th grade, him come up and ask me, who are your parents voting for? And I was like, I guess Republican. Again, I know nothing. And he's like, good, they're Christians, they're supposed to. And I'm like, yeah, I guess we are supposed to. It's like, I don't remember that rule book in my Sunday school class, but okay. That kid, he didn't go to church, he didn't participate in church at all, was hostile to it at times, but that was his perception, was if you're a Christian, you must vote Republican. And then this is, again, one of those areas where God uses comedy to break down some of those hatred barriers that I have in my life. Because there's a time where I was super invested in politics, and I had a side, and I was campaigning for it. And I'm like, if you're not part of this tribe, I'm questioning your faith. There's a time where I questioned my mom's faith. My mom is like one of the most godly people in the world, and I had the nerve to question her faith because we disagreed about my extremist views on politics. And I'm watching this show called Parks and Rec, a comedy, and the whole premise of the show is there's two main characters. There's Leslie Knope. This is Parks and Rec department. Leslie Knope, who's like the second person over the Parks and Rec department. She's very Democrat, very involved. Let's use the government is here to serve the people. Let's serve them in every possible way we can. So she's using the money. There's also the guy over her who is a libertarian. He's like, don't use my government money for anything. We don't even need a building. I want them to take my job from me because I don't think that what they're doing is right. They're using the taxpayers' money for evil. Give it back to the people. You're watching these two, they both are they're friends in the show, but they have two very different political views. And they butt heads a lot. But I thought the beauty of the show was at times you can't help but root for, and this is me. There was a time where I was diehard libertarian. But I'm watching the show and I'm like, man, I'm rooting for Leslie Knope. She really wants to help these people. She wants to give them a good park for their kids to play at. And you're like, who doesn't want a good park for your kids to play at? We pick the parks our kids play at. When I'm taking my nieces and nephews, I'm scoping for the best park, has best slides, best equipment, not the junk. And I'm going to take them there because I want them to have a good experience, a clean, fun experience. And here Leslie Knope is someone who I would hate her politics. And I'm rooting for her. And then there's times where on the show where I'm like, I'm a libertarian, but Ron, ease up. And it started I felt like God was using the show to kind of challenge me some and be like, how much are the politicians you hate because of whatever tribe they're in, how much are they actually trying to do good? You got to it. A lot of times it's just methodology. We have difference in how we're going to tackle the abortion issue. And that was one of those that was challenging for me. I grew up in a very pro-life household, Man, you vote Republican because abortion, we want to end abortion. And then in the circle I was in, I'm learning, oh, there's other ways you can fight abortion. That's not just end it. Yeah. Like you said, let's look at the foster industry. Like let's tackle that. Let's tackle adoption. Let's tackle creating better jobs for single moms to get, so that they can actually have the opportunity to take care of their kid when they feel like they don't have any means to. And so that might be why they're getting the abortion. Is they're just like, I'm a single mom. I don't think I'll be able to take care of this kid and give him a good life, so I'm going to just end it before I put him in a terrible situation. What if we could find a way to give him a better job so that she can pay for the kid and have better health care? And a lot of those things, again, I ain't going to like debate the methodology on which route's better. But it did start opening my eyes up to the fact, like, oh, I'm assuming, like anybody, the reason you get into politics is because you want to serve the people in your community. You're going to have, obviously, people with egos, and they want power and authority, all that stuff. But that's in every job. Yeah. I'm in the cabinet business, and there's people who, like, we know who they are. Yeah. They just want to make some money. But that doesn't mean that there's no good people whatsoever in the cabinet business. No. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that every famous cabinet builder is evil and greedy. Sure. And it's just one of those things where, like, I found myself being challenged constantly because I started looking at those politicians that I had so much animosity against. And I'm like, let me look at your story. Oh, you grew up over here. That was another thing. I grew up in the South Georgia, where a lot of us vote Republican. A lot of us are conservative just by default. And I'm like, if you grew up in California, how likely would you be to vote Democrat? Yeah. Probably pretty likely. It's a different environment up there. That's the different thing you're being raised in. Whatever you're raised in, you think is normal. Yeah. And so there are Christians who vote Democrat for the same reason there are Christians who vote Republican. Sometimes it's just you were born into it and you're shaped at a young age to think that this is how you should vote. And so I think that just gets to the point of you have more grace towards people who are Christians and vote different party lines. Because we all have a different story of why we're voting those different party lines. That's right. Of sometimes it's family influence, sometimes it's just the environment you're in. And then sometimes it's because, like, you were one side growing up, and then you're like, I hate that side, and I'm going to jump to the other side. Yeah. Sure. I don't know, there's just different stories of why people were voting differently, and so we can have grace because they're thinking the same thing about you. Yeah. Like, the Democrats in California are like, I don't understand how a good, reasonable person can vote Republican in South Georgia. And you're like, we all do it. Like, that's normal. But we think the exact same thing about them. Like, how can a good, reasonable person vote Democrat in California? It's like, that's just the environment.
Yeah. And let me just say, because Austin said something, and I just kind of want to drag it a little bit more into the light, because he went through it quick, and you may have missed it. Or you may not want to hear it, maybe even. So he said that within our churches. See, I don't even think people kind of realize that. Like, and I get it, depending on denomination, methodology, all that kind of stuff. So maybe there are some local churches where everybody in your local gathering votes exactly the same. Maybe. Maybe. I think if the church is really reflective of the nations, then you are going to sit beside someone or behind or in front of someone who votes differently. Yeah. And that may come as a shock to some of you because you're like, no, how could they? Again, they love Jesus. They love Jesus. They have to vote like me because I love Jesus. And so, but again, the grace aspect of that is again, we may have differences. And one more thing, too, on just the church, because it's the whole church and state thing, right? Like, so I have people, like even here in South Georgia, I will have people, I kid you not, that come around November, I will either get phone calls I've in times past gotten phone calls from people who are running for local offices. They want to come in and do their promotion thing. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. We don't do that. And they'll be like, well, why? I mean, do you not vote this way? I mean, I had somebody literally last year we were on vacation and they called me and they got one as they first came out and told me they were a believer, and you mentioned that earlier, which I thought was just very funny. That's the way they started, and they were not supposedly on a campaign, campaigning for this person, but they were. They weren't on their payroll, but they were. I don't know, but anyway, they were, and they got plumb mad at me. And they didn't cuss at me, but they were yelling at me. I was like, we started this conversation, I was talking about Jesus, and now you're mad because I won't let you come. This is just insane. You kind of lost me. But, so, no, I mean, I'm not going to do that because I'm not bringing them, because one is Jesus, the gospel is of first importance, not platforms and things of that nature. But then people hear that and be like, well, you got to preach on this or that. Well, for sure. I mean, if I'm going to preach through the Bible, which I am, then I'm going to tackle every single topic that you think of.
Yep.
It just is. I'm not going to avoid any topic biblically. But I'm not also going to jump up there every November and bring in politicians or tell you who you should vote for. Yeah. I ain't good in that. That's not my water to be in thing. I'm going to hope and pray that the word and the spirit and your prayer and counsel and all the things that you should do for any decision is going to guide you.
Yep.
Even in voting kind of thing. You know what I mean? So there's that. But again, biblically, dude, I think people are a little don't understand. We mentioned about, King Saul. It ain't just Old Testament. I mean, Jesus is confronted. The Sanhedrin. Everybody's like the Pharisees and Sanhedrin. That's just, that's not, state. That's not politics. Yeah, they actually, Rome designated them so they didn't have to deal with certain matters. So they actually did make decisions, And so you get, was it Matthew 17, Matthew 22? There's a lot about paying taxes. There's this whole, they're trying to trap Jesus and what to do. And Jesus is like, the sons are free. They're free. We are free. And then in the same breath, he's like, oh, but so we don't offend, pay. And then he uses a miracle, a coin in a fish's mouth to do it. It's crazy. But so it's not like this is new for us or even separated from Scripture because it's there. And just one last thing, and I don't want to, get too preachy on it, but man, I wrote it down. So Romans 12:10 says, love one another with brotherly affection. And we're cool with that, we think. And then he says, and outdo one another in showing honor. Outdo.
Yeah.
You make it your intent, your goal, your drive to outdo someone in loving them and honoring them. And that includes people who don't agree with you, enemies who hate you, love them and show them honor. And what's crazy is that word comes up a ton. And in that Romans 12 passage comes on the heel of us being a living sacrifice and gifts. And then in chapter 13, he gets right into us being subjects to those in authority because they've been given the responsibility by God. Mm-hmm. Now, again, just for 2 seconds, think about this. This is the Roman government. He's writing to the church in Rome.
Yep.
To are believers who are being persecuted by Rome. And it's like, okay, so Nero is, taking Christians and, making them a tiki torch to light up his garden. If you don't get that, they're on a stake, lit on fire. This is what he's doing. He's throwing them in the Colosseum for sport.
Yeah.
And Paul's like, honor him, pray for him, love him. And man, that just, for me, dude, I don't care if it's at the kitchen table with someone that I love, a relative that disagrees with me, or if it's the politician that you completely disagree with.
Yeah.
The question's not, are they honorable, acting, living, even promoting something that is honorable. The question is, will I show them honor? That's different. Because the honorable aspect is that, me showing honor is between me and God. Whether they act that way is between them and God. Me showing them honor, that's on me. You know what I mean? Whether I agree with them or not. And that's a tough thing. But it's crazy, like when you read the Bible, how many times just throughout, and there's so many more passages you could look at in Hebrews and throughout, where these authorities, revelation, these individuals they're doing all kind of things to destroy the church, and we're called to love them and act and be the church.
Yeah. I've never thought about the Romans passage and how Paul's like, be subject to the governing authorities, like, and then that being Rome who's because I've only ever heard that phrase used when it's someone like we as Christians we want in office, and we're like looking at the ongoing world, we're like, you guys need to be subject to our Christian authority, like that's in office. Not as Christians, we need to be subject to the authority who is out against us in office.
Yeah, they didn't vote him in.
That's challenging.
Yeah, he's awesome.
This is how God was working on me, is when I started noticing some of the characteristics of things happening in the Bible, and how much it challenged my politics. I'm thinking about Joseph in Egypt.
Okay.
And again, I put my cards on the table. I was diehard like libertarian. Like we're bringing Christian Reconstruction in. And then I'm reading the story of Joseph, and he's working not only with unbelievers, which for some people is a huge no-no. Of we don't associate with unbelievers, we don't work with unbelievers, because that's going to defile us, as if like Jesus' ministry doesn't completely break that stereotype. But he's working with an unbeliever in a pagan country. Pagan rule. There's tons of idolatry and worship to other gods, but Joseph is being promoted, and he's working alongside the king. He's second in command. And not only that, but then the thing that they do together is they feed their people who are about to what is it? They're going through the famine. The government is feeding the people. And in my mind, I'm like, well, dang, like if that happened today, if the government's like, we're gonna feed the entire country, I'm like, that's socialism. As a libertarian, I absolutely hate that. And then I'm reading it, I'm like, frick, well, God, he did some things in the government with his people, teaming up with people who aren't his people, and they did things that I don't feel comfortable with. That I think are like huge no-nos. Yet God used it to save Israel ultimately, because then Joseph ends up feeding his own family, and they end up coming, and the Israelites end up coming, and like I don't know, it was challenging. And so then I'm like, dang man, I need to be willing to work with people who politically are different, and at times we're gonna have like the methodology. It's not set in stone how we do things. Like I think sometimes we forget that like the Bible doesn't promote democracy. Like that wasn't a thing. And so we have some freedom to invent new ways of how to govern people and how to like work out these issues. And like we think in America, democracy is the best way to do that. So we work in that system. But then it's okay if as we're working through this brand new system, that we try some new things every now and then. But then I'm thinking about Daniel too. And Daniel's like my favorite character in the Bible. And I'm watching Daniel, and this is one of those other areas like God challenged me, and we'll probably talk about it again in the next couple of weeks on the education episode. I was such a diehard for Christian education. As a libertarian, you think that public school is socialism because it's the government freely educating kids, and that's a no-no again. And they're teaching your kids, if you're a Christian, things that you believe are unbiblical, if you get into the weeds on that. But then I'm looking at Daniel, and I'm like, well, Daniel is being, in some cases, like indoctrinated. He's being taught Chaldean culture and the Babylonian culture, all that stuff. So that he he will be a good Babylonian, and they'll completely transform the Israelites and make them a part of their own culture and all that stuff. But then you watch Daniel, and he's like, yeah, teach me all that stuff, and I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability, but I'm also gonna honor God through it. And so there's going to be some things where I'm going to push back on. And even though I'm in your system, I have to work in your system, I'm going to do it in a way that honors God. Yeah. And what ended up happening was when he stuck true to his values, the king noticed it and was like, you're the, out of all the kids, the one who stuck true to his values, that went against our own values, we're going to change how we're training our people, because how you're doing it is way better. Yeah. And then Daniel starts getting promoted, and he, again, I don't think we realize he's working. If we put him in our system today, as our ungodly government or whatever, and Daniel's in there, we're gonna be like, Daniel, why are you working with these ungodly people? Yeah. Why are you in politics? Yeah. That's not Christian. Yeah. But Daniel's in there, and he's having these tough conversations with the political powers of the day. And there's times where he's privileged, and he's on the king's good side. And there's times where he had to tell the king, what God had to say, and the king didn't like it. And the king's like, I'm done with you. And it cost Daniel all the privilege and power he had, but Daniel was willing to sacrifice for it. And so then that challenged me, because I'm like, okay, I need to be willing to work with people again who are not of my own tribe. But then I also need to be willing to stand up for God's truth, not our political truth that we put Jesus stickers on, but God's actual truth on what he says our values are. Even when my tribe or my political party or my government or whatever it is says it's going to cost you something if you do that. Yeah. And I think that's something we're having to wrestle with now, is with the evangelical vote. We're at this weird time where a lot of us are scared that we're going to lose some power and influence in our country if certain things get passed and certain things start taking place. And because of that, we respond in fear. And we're like, well, we got to put a strong man in office who's going to defend us, even if he does so by means that are very ungodly. Yes. And it's tough, because I think that goes to our insecurity of, do we actually believe that God's message is stronger than the political powers of the day? I remember Matt Chandler talking about how it's 2016, all that stuff's going on. Evangelicals are in fear, and specifically white evangelicals put Trump in office. And Vice comes and asks him, why do you think that happened? And he's like, well, I think it's because of fear. Our people are scared that if the other side got in, we're going to lose some of our freedom. And then he wrote this book called Take Heart, I think it was. And it's a very short book. And he goes and visits Rome. And he's like, these Christians stood true on their values, and by the means of how they're going to communicate those values. And even though they went through an intense time of persecution, Rome's the one who's been demolished. Rome's not standing anymore. It's in ruins. And at the time, it looked like the Christians were losing. They're, like you said, they're on tiki torches. But then 2,000 years later, we're looking back, and Christians are everywhere. Yeah. And those Colosseums are, we go and
that's
tour.
All of history.
Yeah.
I mean, all the empires, no matter Egyptian, go back Persian, Assyrian, you go back whenever, at the peak of their empire, none of them thought it was going to end.
Yeah.
The leaders, like a pharaoh, or was the most powerful man on the planet. What's going to stop him? And yet God's people continued, despite slavery, despite hardships, despite whatever. Even David coming into kingship, a man after God's own heart, there was still so much surrounding God's people, and yet they persevere because of the God they serve. Same thing with Rome. I just always get a chuckle when I think about that, because the U.S., we think that too.
Yeah.
We're invincible. We're going to stand forever. We're a baby as far as a country. And those empires thought they were going to last forever. Mm-hmm. Now we pay money to go look at, tourist areas like the Coliseum. Like it's like that's what they are now.
And I think we forget, like, you look at some of those, as Americans, our fear would be communism. Something like that.
Yeah.
But if we look at communist countries today and how well Christians are doing, even in the face of persecution, they're doing better than us, like spiritually. Like those churches are booming. And that doesn't mean like we sit back and we just let like persecution come.
Sure.
But it's, I think what I'm trying to like say is be okay with, like, I think that's part of the whole challenge in Revelation is things will get bad, but you have a hope to stand firm on. Like, absolutely. We know who wins at the end of the day. Yeah. We know that it's the Spirit who lives inside of us. We are safe no matter what. Yeah. So we don't have to buy into the insecurities or the fears. We can live a life of hope and honor God through that. We don't have to sacrifice our morals or our faith or anything like that in order to keep the influence. That's right. Like, your God is enough. The gospel is enough. And so stand firm on that despite whatever the circumstances.
Yeah, that's a good word. And the thing too, that Austin is again, not that, like in a communist country like China or whatever, like, yes, believers and actually revival, in many of those places, and you get what we would say, quote unquote, air quotes, I guess, genuine believers, because it costs them so much. Mm-hmm. It's not easy believism, like, everybody's a believer, all Christian nation, man, like, this is gonna cost you.
Yeah.
And just to one other thing in that regard, man, it's like in Acts 4, where John and Peter are being told by, again, the religious leaders, but also those would be part of the Sanhedrin, and in fact it says even the elders, so it kind of hints to that, are like, hey, quit. You just healed somebody, quit saying you did it in Jesus' name. You got to stop preaching in Jesus' name. And they're like, hey, whether it's right in your eyes or not, it all really is about God. We can't help but speak, preach, teach, talk about what we've seen and heard. But there were consequences.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, as believers, like, we need to understand that. We don't fear that. Jesus is on the throne, like you said, man. He's not getting impeached. He's not getting, tossed out of office. He's forever on the throne. But with going against, some things that we know are immoral or completely unbiblical kind of thing, we take a stand, and we will stand because we will persevere because he will enable us to. But that doesn't mean there won't be consequences.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you're willing to, because there's true conviction, that you have. And one last thing, I was reading it again this morning just in preparation, man, praying. Matthew 23, man, Jesus comes out like it is like the woe is me, as far as the religious elite, and he's just going off on them. I mean, he's going off. And I read it again this morning where he says, their focus is not, they're making the minor things the major things. They're straining out a gnat, like they would strain out a gnat, but, because they want the water clean. You don't want a bug, it just taints everything. You don't want to drink it, kind of thing. And he says you're swallowing a camel, the biggest animal of that day, unclean, nasty. He's like, man, you're straining. And the whole point is they are majoring in the minor instead of, majoring in the major things.
Yeah.
And in politics, that happens all the time too. And even as believers, kind of thing, like we get so divided over the minor. It's not that they're not important; they're just not the primary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what we need to do too. We need to make sure, no matter what party, platform, candidate, kind of thing, our focus is on the primary, the major things. And we're not getting so divided and so worked up over the minors that we don't ever even get to the majors.
Yeah. Something that come to mind, I think you said it in your sermon Sunday. You talked about Jesus' disciples and the diversity in that, and how there's a zealot and a tax collector, and then just, can you speak on that, of just the probably like the political tension of just
For sure.
in the disciples.
Okay, yeah. I mean, just like with Matthew, Levi. I mean, he's a he's a Jew who works for Rome, the enemy. I mean, he's a traitor. He's a thief. He's unclean as far as seen in the Jews' eyes. I mean, he's despicable, disgraceful, just a traitor. And yet he's a Jew, and yet he works for Rome. And then Jesus calls him. And so you got Peter and John and, all the other Jews who, of course, wouldn't like him to begin with. But then you got a zealot who is born, raised, trained, whole mentality is to kill. Rome. Yeah. And so Matthew would have been a target, like he would have been. And now they're side by side. Mm-hmm. They're witnessing miracles. They're performing. They're and Jesus is he's the crux. He's the linchpin that holds this diverse group together. And it's not just the political. They would have been from. Yeah. I mean, I know it's a small. I mean, as far as where they were from, and that's. They're still individuals. You see it when you read their letters. John and Peter's really different. Yeah. I mean, personality, a lot of different background and backdrop to their story. So they would have had disagreements. Mm-hmm. In fact, you hear of some of the disagreements, within themselves. And yet, again, the common, what glued them together, kept them together, and not just like, they were bickering a lot about who's going to be raised and all that, Yeah. But what kept them together even after the death and the resurrection of Jesus was Jesus and is Jesus and should be Jesus for us.
Yeah. One of the things that came to my mind this morning, and I think you hit on it a little bit earlier, was, I'm going to read it. It's Mark 12:13. It says, and they sent to Jesus some of the Pharisees and some of the Herodians to trap Jesus in his talk. And they came and they said to Jesus, Teacher, we know that you are true and do not care about anyone's opinion. For you are not swayed by appearances, but truly teach the way of God. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Should we pay them or should we not? Mm-hmm. But Jesus, knowing their hypocrisy, Jesus said to them, why put me to the test? Bring me a denarius and let me look at it. So they brought him one, and Jesus said to them, whose likeness and inscription is this? They said to Jesus, Caesar's. So Jesus said to them, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. And they marveled at him. And I'm thinking about that. And I remember hearing that for the first time. It was Jefferson Bethke's sermon at Liberty's convocation, like a few years ago. And he pointed out, he's like, this goes back to that image bearer language. Yeah. He asked, whose image is on that coin? And then he says, so render to Caesar's what is Caesar's. Mm-hmm. And the point of that is not to talk about taxes, but he's asking them, whose image is on you? Mm-hmm. And so are you giving back to God's what is God's? Mm-hmm. And in our current climate where it is asked of you to give radical devotion to a political party or tribe or candidate or whatever, we have to constantly go back to that question every morning when we wake up. Whose image is on me? And that being God's. And am I actually living in light of that? Of, as I go through my day and I interact with people of different tribes or political persuasions or whatever it is, do I look more like Jesus or more like my candidate? I think the way that as Christians we actually make an impact in our country is we don't buy into I think what's beautiful about the church and what's been challenging about being at the Bridge is how politically diverse our church is, which made me hella uncomfortable at first. But then as I got to know more of the people and I just sat with them, you realize how much like we grow off of each other. Like, I think about mine and Wayne Ade's relationship. Me and him have had tough conversations about politics, and I dreaded it because I'm like, man, I'm just trying to get to know you. And he's like, so immigration. But we start having conversations, and then he told me something one time. He's like, there's an issue. I can't remember if it's something I posted or it probably was. And he pulled me aside, and he's like, Austin, I need to talk to you. I'm like, oh, God. That always gives me such anxiety because I'm like, what bomb are you about to drop?
Yeah.
But he does this all the time, so I've learned to get a little used to it. He's like, I read what you put, and I've taken it the wrong way, I think. I know you, so I know your heart. So I know there must be something more to this. Can you please explain this to me? He's done that so many times. And I explained it to him. And he's like, you know what? I think you actually changed my view on that. I was like, I definitely wasn't trying to change your view because you're way older and wiser. And like, that's not my goal at all. Yeah. But it was challenging because I'm like, dang. And then I look at mine and his relationship. I'm like, well, you actually made me appreciate some things more. I didn't grow up in a military household. My dad couldn't go into the military because of some health conditions. So we didn't grow up very patriotic. We didn't grow up very political. And so my parents also raised me in an environment where we're constantly ministering to people who they just have a tense relationship with the cops. Mm-hmm. So I haven't always been on the same side of my parents, but over the years I've grown to be like a little like I guess rough around cops and just rough around like patriotism and stuff like that. And then being at this church, two of the people who've had the greatest impact on me here is Frank Williams and Wayne Aid. Now they differ politically, very much so. I love it. But then they also served our country, and they are veterans. And I listen to their stories, and I start to appreciate more of the sacrifice they make. And though I just wouldn't consider myself very patriotic because I'm not that's not my personality type. It did challenge me to be more appreciative and look out for more of how we can care for our veterans. And it was one of those things of just like not only getting to know Frank, but then Wayne and the conversations we'd have. And I remember his the sermon he preached at his dad's funeral or memorial service. And he just talked about how he grew up. And you're just like, I really appreciate you. Me and him have butted heads at Huddle House. Because we still disagree politically. But over time of us wrestling through those disagreements, we've got to see each other's hearts. And we slowly have linked arms in certain things. Whether it's me, like I said, having more appreciation to our veterans. But then him changing his outlook on some of the like racial dynamics with the cops. And I don't know, it's just been I feel like that's part of the beauty of the church is we all have our different biases and homes that we go to at the end of the day. But as we link arms because of we are convinced that Jesus has a way of life that's better. Jesus starts bringing us together, and he starts sharpening us with each other, and he's growing us together, and he's causing us to see our flaws and our biases and our weak points, and where I'm weak, Wayne's stronger, and so he can pour into me. And then where I'm strong and Wayne's weak, I can pour into him. And slowly we start becoming more of like the image of Christ. Yeah. And what was beautiful too was, I don't even know where this quite came from, but there was a time in the 2020 election where someone, I don't know, they just, for whatever reason, it felt like they were targeting me, and Wayne was around. I don't vote Democrat. I don't vote Republican either. I don't vote Libertarian. I'm just everywhere now politically. I'm just whoever's best, I'll vote for you. But I might not even vote sometimes. We're sitting around a campfire and this guy says, I don't see, he's like trying to get up under my skin for whatever reason. And he's like, you can't be a Christian, vote Democrat. And Wayne's like, nah, that's not true. And he like gives that look to me. He's like the I got you look. And then he just kind of like corrects the guy. And I've watched Wayne do that so many times for me, where people, I probably word things terribly sometimes, and it gives people the wrong impression, or I've naturally gave people the wrong impression of where I am politically at times. But then seeing Wayne, even when we disagree with each other, him defend me and be like, no, I know Austin. If you got to know Austin, you would understand why he thinks that way. Which is like one of the most like loving things I've ever had someone do, because I've always felt like I'm mentally like in outer space and like no one understands me, and that's partly because I don't understand myself sometimes. I tell Berlin, I'm like, I just don't understand how my brain works, and I wish it didn't work this way, because it's very frustrating, because I feel like I'm constantly like I can't even represent my own thoughts that well, which is odd, because then I start a podcast where I have to deliver my thoughts continually. But then to have someone like Wayne just be like, I know Austin, and Austin's got a good heart, and I'm gonna take up for him, and I'm gonna look out for him, even when we disagree. I think that's just a beautiful thing about the church. It's like, if the church, like you said, is truly representative of the people in our community, which it should be. Like Jesus touches all different types of people in your community, so if your church looks all the same and acts all the same, it's gonna be rough. Some's off. Yeah. But when we're truly representative of Jesus calling people from all different tribes and nations and tongues and all that stuff, I feel like we'll start bridging gaps more, and we'll actually have a better witness to give to our country, who's like tearing each other apart. The church can seep in and be like, well, no, if you come to the bridge, Republicans and Democrats are sitting by each other, and they're buying each other meals, and they're loving each other. And they might do things different methodologically in the voting booth, but they have the same goal, and it's to love God and love people. I'm done with my rant. You got anything?
Love wins, man. I'm good. Love wins.